Senior management, they're in the position to do the right thing. Now keep in mind, I said Chuck was 3 rungs down the line in the department bureaucracy. He had bosses. They turn a blind eye. They support his actions. He doesn't operate on his own. He's got people working for him who are working with him. And management is letting him do it. They know what's going on. They're not stopping him. And he has to have a high-level supporter. It came out that the ADM, the person Chuck reported to, was one of Chuck's strongest supporters and protectors. And one of the reasons the sponsorship scandal actually existed and didn't get stopped in its infancy. Jim Stovey, this is a fun one, this is the ADM I'm mentioning, writes this memo after I report the problem. He writes this memo, and read this memo exactly as it's written. I report a problem of great illegalities and problems in procurement. So he writes a memo about me. And he's writing it to the deputy minister. A situation that exists with respect to one, a staff relationship issue in April, that was Chuck's organization. I'm the staff relation issue. Okay? And he says, and 2, a potential contracting problem. And what's the next statement? That has come to light as a result of the first issue. Cause and effect. I am the cause of the problem. I finally, 2 years later, settled the complaint with the department. I was forcibly transferred into a new job. The department put in writing, because it wouldn't have accepted any other way, there would be no reoccurrence. There was no repercussions on Chuck. I thought everything had gone smoothly. I took the department at their written word, not just what they told me. Never happened. So the reaction when it blew up, what does a perpetrator do? Denies any wrongdoing. And to this day, all his testimony, he's denied anything. Takes a defensive stance. If you ever get hold of the interesting tapes from public accounts or listen to them, he actually blames me as the person who stole all the documents off the files. And he said it at least on 3 different testimonies, that I was the one. And he even made the statement that they were there when he retired, but they were taken off after he retired by me. I hadn't worked for his organization for 3 years before he retired, but I still took them off after he retired. And a lack of remorse. I've never heard of any indication of remorse. The participants, the people working directly for him, and there's 4 to 5 of them who actively supported him and helped him. One of whom said, I will do anything Chuck asks me to, directly to me. They benefit directly. They got promotions. They got to go to the Grand Prix. They got trips. Oh, it's amazing just what went on. Grey Cup tickets when Grey Cup was in Ottawa. And they benefit the other organizations. You have to realize people are funneling work to Chuck. So the other organizations, they're sending information in. And Chuck is doing things for them and favors for them. And so they're working with him knowing that they're doing things wrong. And I have all that information. But one of the more interesting facts on this is management, and I think maybe the MBA program really needs to refocus on what a success is. Management looks down on 2 managers, and I heard it mentioned earlier about the image. The one manager is doing a fantastic job. He's the high flyer. The other manager always has problems but gets the job done slower. The one following the rules and legalities is the slower individual. The high flyer, the one everybody likes, is the one who seems to be able to perform miracles. And those were the ones who were sending work to Chuck. And yes, they did get promotions. You'd be amazed at the positions some of them have. Many people who participated, they never said anything. There's no danger, no principle. Keep in mind, going back to Kidder, the moral courage. They're not in danger. Chuck's the one doing it for it. And for all you talked about greed, I think you missed the issue of power. Chuck didn't do this for greed initially. He did it for power. The ability to influence people to get what he wanted. He was a wheeler and dealer with people. And power was a real motivator. And I think power is the driver of a lot of people in this situation. Greed works too, though. Okay. The participants. Now you get into everybody else. You have reluctant participants. They didn't stand up and say something's wrong. They went along with it. Why did they go along with it? Well, they're told to go along with it. And they do it, even though they know it's wrong. And they support him, even though they see what is wrong. They fall into a couple of categories, or a few categories as we've been able to identify. The malleable, the people with no principle. You met them whenever you've worked. They come along, you say, do this. They say, yeah, sure. They're just going to follow orders. They don't think. You've got the herd mentality. Everybody else is doing it. I'm doing it too. Fear. I heard fear mentioned earlier today. Yes, people will react to do the wrong thing because they're scared of the consequences of doing the right thing. And diffused responsibility is something that I think people don't realize. If you have two people, and if you fell down, for example, and there's two people here, they both run to your aid because they'd say what's wrong. If you fell down with a room full of people, everybody waits to see who reacts first. That's diffused responsibility. The more people involved, the less anybody has to take responsibility. So that's what happens. The result, no public servant who cooperated with him, and by the way, this goes for Chuck Ite too, he's got his reputation. What he was charged with was work and the bribery done after the government, not while working. He's never been charged for administrative malfeasance. Every public servant, almost every public servant was rewarded, and he got no repercussions. The only one, and don't feel sorry for me guys, the only one who ever had repercussions and still has them to this day is me. But I get to stand here in front of you. None of them would. The results of a non-participant, extreme stress. I went through all this. Depression, sleep disturbance. We know of some people who have done suicide, permanently damaged nervous breakdowns. I never went to that extreme. But speak out, warns others. I was the non-participant. That is not necessarily a distinction to be proud of sometimes, and I'm not smug about it, but I always wondered why there weren't others.